Welcome. My name is Liam Keegan. Today, I'm going to cover a very common scenario in which I have a web page that has some data on it, but I need to process it in a different way than what's being presented. So let's take a look at our example here. On March 14th, Cisco ran a Pi Day sale that provided additional discount on some of their e-learning courses. Since you need continuing education credits, and each of these classes provides credits, I wanted to find out what the dollar to credit ratio was and figure out which course was the best. For example, our first class here, Engineering Cisco Meraki Solutions Part 1, on Pi Day cost $337.50 and gave you 6 credits for a cost of $56.25 per credit. Now, you could easily copy and paste or do the math manually, but what's the fun in that? I wanted to write a quick and easy Python script, use the beautiful Soup4 library to parse what's on the page, so whether it was 27 promotions or 5,000, I could get the data. So let's dive right in, make our script, and parse our data. All right, here's our web page. So since I recorded this video after the Pi Day promotion ended, I just saved a copy of the data as it was on March 14th, but it's still good for this exercise. So the first thing I want to do is I want to take a look at the page and I want to see, okay, I have 27 results for classes that were on promotion. And I can just scroll down here and I can see that each one of these classes is represented on the page like this. So I'm going to press F12 to bring up my developer tools. When my developer tools are up, I can now look at the actual HTML on the page. And when I roll across the items, it will highlight the part of the page that the HTML represents. I can also click on this inspect icon up here and come through and it'll show me where the data is in the HTML. So I can just click here. What I'm looking to do is I'm looking to identify what part of the HTML represents each one of these classes, because I want to pull out this information. I want to pull out the course name, I want to pull out the continuing education credits, and I want to pull out the cost, right? Because if I take my cost and divide it by my credits, I get my cost per credit. Simple. So looking at this, it looks like we have a div class, and a div is just an HTML container that you can give it a name and call it anything you want. But it looks like we've got a div class for product detail, and with maybe a top level part that gives us all of the information in this one class. So what we want to do is we want to look at every one of these classes, these divs that has a class of product detail. And if we come down here, here's the next one, right? So we've got another one down here. So what we want to do is we want to find all of these divs that have a class of product detail. So the first thing, let's do this. Let's highlight our HTML. Right? And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to copy the HTML above it, right? So I'm going to go grab what we call, they're calling the product grid, and that's all of the classes. And I'm just going to simply copy our element, and then I'm going to move over to Visual Studio Code and just create a new file called data.html. I'm going to paste this in here. And if you notice, this is the data from our web page, right? So it's just in a text file now. I'm going to hit save. Now, if you notice, there's a bunch of white space around here. Well, it kind of makes it a little harder to look at. So I can format the document by typing in format document and using prettier. And all of a sudden, look at this. It's somewhat manageable, right? But I can see now that I've got all of these. I've got my classes in here, right? So I've got my div product detail with my Meraki Solution Specialist. I've got my access duration. I've got the course name. I've got the continuing education credits. So now what we need to do is set up our Python environment to be able to parse the data in the data.html document. So to do that, the first thing we're going to do, and I just have an empty directory here called ce_parse. I'm going to create a virtual environment and place that in the .vn directory, and I am going to activate it. Now, I'm in my virtual environment, which means I can install packages into the environment without conflicting with any of my other projects that I have going on. And so at this point, I can do a pip install BS4. That installs the Beautiful Soup 4 module, as well as LXML. And what LXML is a a C library that parses HTML and XML, and the LXML library wraps it in Python, so it's very fast. So between Beautiful Soup 4 and LXML, that's what we need to go actually search through this data and find the information that we're looking for. So next step, let's create our file. So I'm just calling it main.py. So first thing that we do, let's bring in the BS4 library. So import BS4 as BS. And now we've got our data in our data.html document. Let's read that into a variable within the Python environment. So to do that, we're going to do a with statement, and we're going to open data.html, and we'll call it file. So we are going to create a variable called data, and we are going to read all of the lines in file, and we are going to do a write strip to remove all of the trailing new lines at the end of the data. So at this point, we are, I have my parentheses in the wrong place. So with open data HTML as file, data file read our strip, we now should, if we run this, be able to come through and print data and make sure that we are seeing our document. And look at that. We have it there. So now we know that Python is actually properly opening, reading the file, and printing it accordingly. All right, our next step. Let's go through, we'll remove this print statement, and let's use the Beautiful Soup library to parse the data in the data variable. So to do this, I'm going to create a new object. It's just going to be called soup. And to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say soup is Beautiful Soup, or bs.beautifulsoup. I'm going to read the contents of data and then parse it with the LXML library. Okay, and what that's going to do is create an object called soup that parses all of the data that's in our file that we just read. Okay, so at this point, once again, because this is just something that we can test to make sure that we're looking good here, look at this. I can see now that this data has been parsed as HTML, right? So the library is working properly. So let's do this. So when we went and looked at our data, we want to find our classes that are product details. So if I just highlight this and search for class product detail, if you notice that VS Code is telling me that I have one of 27 instances, well, that number was the 27 results for promotions that I had over here. All right, so I know that that's the data I'm looking for. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to find all of the product detail classes so I can actually iterate through them and pull information out. So to do that, we create a new object called courses, and we do a soup find all. I want to find all div elements that have a class with an ID of product detail. Now, so what this does is it creates a new variable called courses, where Beautiful Soup goes through the HTML document and it just pulls out the div elements that have a class of product and product detail. Now, why is there a class underscore, right? Well, class is actually a reserved word in the Python language. So by doing class underscore, it tells the Python the Python interpreter that no, we're not actually talking about the reserved class value that is natively in Python, that we are in fact talking about something that is defined by Beautiful Soup. Okay, so now at this point, we can take a look by saying we can do a print courses, right? And of course, this is going to be a bunch of stuff, right? But let's just take a look at the first one. So I'm going to print courses bracket 0, which is going to show me the first entry. And what this is going to say is, hey, look at this. The Cisco Engineering, or the Engineering Cisco Meraki Solutions Part 1 is an introductory course, right? That is the same course that is the first one in our list here, right? And if we go and do a print courses bracket 1, that will show us the second record. Look at this. It will, if we roll up, this course, Cisco Engineering Meraki Solutions Part 2, elevator, right? So we found our data, okay? So now what do we want to do through with this data? Well, at this point, we want to iterate through this, the list of courses, right? So to do that, we just do a for course in courses, right? And at this point, we're going to go through each of the element in the courses object and pull out, each course. And now we want to grab some data. So let's go get the first thing. Okay, so I'm going to take a couple of steps here to get there. So I'm going to create a course title. Now, in this case, what I want to do is I want to create a new variable called course title, right? And in the course object, which is just the first iterator on the courses parse data, I want to grab course.find div. Now, in this case, I did a find all, right? Which said I want to grab every single element that has a div called product detail, right? But in this case, each course doesn't have more than one what we call course details title. So if we come through here, come back and look at our raw HTML, right? We have look at this, a div class called course details title. Okay, and I'm just going to copy this because I'm going to copy and paste it right into my script. So I'm going to copy that. If you notice under here, I've got a link and a URL, and then I've got the actual course name, right? So, or in the reference, I've got a title, right? I could pull any of this information out. Okay, so let's do this. So what I want to do is I want to find the div with the class. Oop, I got my pen in the wrong place. With a class, remember I've got to do underscore because otherwise it's a reserved word, right? Of course, details title, okay? Now at this point, what I want to do is I'm just going to do a break because I just wanted to do the first one and then stop, right? And I want to see what this thing looks like. So print course title, hit go. Okay, so look what I've got. So I printed this out, it ran the debug, and I've got the data, but I've got the whole div, okay? So within this div, I have an H2, which is a second level heading, and then I have a reference, which is an anchor or a link reference, right? And I want to grab from this whatever's down. So I want to go into H2, then into A, and then grab the title, right? So what I can do is simply come through here and I can say, okay, I want to grab this information, but now I want to grab the H2 and then the A with the title keyword. Okay, and now, so that should pull out this. So let's take a look. Hey, look at that. Right here is the power of the Beautiful Soup library. Now you can do this without Beautiful Soup, but you have to do regex. You have to basically process this. It has no awareness of what the HTML actually is. So now I've got our course title. So that's step one. So now let's continue on and grab the course credits. So how do we do that? Well, let's look through here. Let's see. So scrolling down. Oh, here we go. This is even easier. So div class course details credits, continuing education credit 6. And I probably don't want this whole thing because I just want to interact with this as a number. So what I really want is this number here. Okay. So once again, I'm going to copy this, right? Copy. And I'm going to do a course credits equals course find. I want a div class is. Oop, forgot my equals. Right? And now let's take a look. So instead of printing my course title, I want to print my course credits. Let's see what it shows up now as. Look at this. So here's my continuing education, right? Here's my div class. Here's my p-value, the first p-value. Okay, so to do this, we've got to get this a little bit differently, because in the case of our course detail title, we were pulling out a keyword from an anchor element. In this case, we actually want the value of this p tag, right? This paragraph tag. So to do that, first of all, we go in there and grab this object. So if we just do a .p, right, we're going to get this. Okay, that gives us the whole tag. Well, that is too much. I mean, I guess we could parse that, but let's make this a little bit more elegant. And what I can do is I can run a method called getText. So what that will do is when I run that, it will show, instead of showing the outer tags, it'll only show the values. The values contained within the tags. So I've still got some other stuff, though. I've got this continuing education credits, a colon, and then a space, and then 6, right? And what I really want is this. Now, I can do it with regex, but we'll just use the split method. So I'm going to split this data based on the colon and a space, right? Because if you notice, I've got a colon and a space here, and then 6, right? And so at this point, now I have a list, right? So I just split it up. So I've got this in part number, this in the 0 element, and this in the 1 element. And all I need to do now is grab the 1, right? The first element, which is really the second position in my list. And now if I run it, look at this. I've got a 6. So once again, I mean, you start and you go right down the list until you get the data you want. Finally, the last thing that I want is the course price. So let's go back to our data and take a look and find where this is. So we're going down. Okay, so Pi Day, 25% off. Price reduced from, I probably don't want that. Oh, here we go. So here we go. We have a span class sales, and our value is $337.50. And I've got the content in a attribute tag as well as in the text, but I can just grab it right from here. So what I want to do is I want to grab my span class sales and then look for the, sales value content. So let's go over here and say, okay, once again, for this course, I want to find a div with the class equal to sales. Gotta do this. And once again, we're just going to do a price. So let's print that out. Oh, look at this. So what did I do? I did a div. What I need is a span, right? So once again, you have to find the tags referenced by the actual tags. Like, it just won't let you make stuff up. So let's change this to a span. And look at this. So I've got the span class sales, and then another subspan with a value in the content there. So we're going to go down the span, the next one down, and we're going to grab content. I'm going to hit go, and look at that. I've got my $337.50. Okay. So now at this point, it's pretty simple what we do first. So let's say price per credit is the course price divided by the course credits, right? And once again, we're just going to take a look at the first one. We're going to break after we do this once just to see if we're working. And now look what happens when I run this. I get a type error. Unsupported operand types for string and string. Now, what does this mean? So Python has no idea that these values are actually numbers. It's just looking at it as, hey, I've got 3 numbers, a period, and 2 numbers, right? Well, we need to take these and convert them into numbers so that we can divide them. To do that's super simple. So we know that our course price is a float, or I'm sorry, is an integer, but it's got a decimal point and and it's got dollars and cents, right? So you have some amount of money, in this case, $337.50. And to do that, we need to use the float type. So we convert course price to a float. And then course credit, well, you don't get 6.8 credits, you just get 6. So we can just say integer course credits. And what that does is it turns these values from standard strings, which you can't do mathematical operations on strings, into a floating point number and an integer. So we can divide those two together. So let's take a look at what this comes out with and look at that. There's our $56.25. So now I'm just going to remove the break, and this is going to iterate through everything. Now look at what we've got. So we can see I've got $56, $18.75, a couple that are $20, $18. Oh, I got some. One of the courses is $9 a credit. One of them's $5.85, right? And then I've got a traceback. Now, why did we get a traceback? Well, what happened is when we were looking for course credits, we've got a couple items in this list that don't have credits. So let's go back and actually take a look at why that is. So we're going to go scroll down. Remember, all of this happens in order. It doesn't get reordered. It doesn't get changed. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to look. And so I've got all these things, credits. Oh, look at this. So Customer Success Manager Specialists, access duration 180 days. Look at this. There are no CEs given for this particular class, nor for this learning lab, nor for this modeling lab, and anything down here, right? So what we need to do is actually put in a check to see if this div contains continuing education credits, and if not, just skip over it because we really don't care. So let's do that next. All right. So the problem that we have is that some of these records don't have course credits, right? So what we want to do is do a check to see if the course credits even exist, and if not, just skip it. So to do that, let's run this first. So let's move this to the top, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to just run a simple if statement, right? And what we can do, because Beautiful Soup allows you to actually look for elements, right? If there is a div that has, it's called course details credits in it, then we can go ahead and assign the variable, right? If not, we just pass. And that just moves us on to the next one, right? None of this runs, and it skips the rest. So look at this. Now we've run it, and we have completely bypassed our error, right? Because it just, hey, I don't even need it. We're good to go. All right. So at this point, right, it's really easy to format this in some output. Once again, I mean, we could put it in a table, put it in a list or a dictionary or something like that. But just to get this thing out and maybe throw it in, so you can copy and paste it into Excel or something and make it look really easy and pretty, we can do a print for each one of these records where we use an F string. And we say, okay, the first thing that I want to print is the course name or course title, followed by a comma, followed by the course price, followed by our price per click or price per credit. So let's just take a look at what that looks like. Hey, look at this. So we've got all of these Meraki solutions implementing, right? And look at this. We've got all of these. So we know, for instance, if we want the service provider core network, right, it's $1,750 and it's $11.71. Oh, maybe, you know what we should probably throw in there is the number of credits. So let's just do that. Course credits, comma, and then price per credit, and just hit enter. All right, so that is looking really good. Actually, we need to change this to, instead of pass, we need to change this to continue. There we go. What happens when you pass, it just ignores this. When you continue, it breaks out of this loop and goes on to the next iterator, right? So if you notice, when I was doing a pass, I was still seeing the courses for Customer Success Manager, Learning Labs, Modeling Labs, right? But when I did a continue, it said, okay, there's nothing in this iterator that we care about anymore. Go to the next iterator. So go to the next record. All right. So now I've got this information, but you know what? I would really like my dollars, like I'm not going to spend $17.57.8, right? I'm going to spend $17.59, right? So as part of the F string, what we can do is use our F string to basically format this a little bit more cleanly. Let me show you how to do that. All right. So when we run our script right now, we're seeing these long numbers because of rounding, right? So the first thing I want to do is just put in a $sign in front of it, right? That's no real meaning other than it's not doing anything. It's just a character. But now I hit that and I've got this. Well, this is very hard to make change for. So what I need to do is I need to format the string. Format the number in the PPC variable. And the way I do that is you take the F string and you do a colon, a dot, a 2, and an F. And what that does is it formats it to 2 decimal places. So at this point, hey, look at this. I can see that I've got all of these formatted here. Let me just clear this out and rerun it to make this a little bit cleaner. And look at this. Now from here, this is just a CSV value or CSV table. I can take this, I can throw this into Excel, I can throw this into Word, I can throw this into anything I want to, but it gives me a really good idea of what the price per click is, or I'm sorry, the price per continuing education credit is, without having to do a bunch of manual parsing. So I hope that you found this entertaining. I hope you found it educational. And I hope that when you are in a situation where you need to go parse through something with HTML, that you think about maybe using some Python in the beautiful soup library, because it makes it so much easier to be able to iterate on this data and do it without copying and pasting 1,000 times. So thanks so much for joining me. Please let me know if you have any questions.